Welcome back to another episode of Fumbles and Floaters. I am Blake,
Bobby Buckets.
and we are here to talk about the Eastern Conference of the NBA. I know we've done a lot of NFL and football, but we got some floaters coming.
Some
Maybe some
floaters.
good
The
ones. Yeah,
NBA is almost here.
yeah.
Finally. I mean, not really finally because it's been pretty quick, but it's
Mm.
back. And,
Preseason, what? 2 weeks?
yeah, I think they start training camp like within this week. So, um, I know the draft and free agency moved quick, but there's a lot of moves. We got a lot to talk about. Like you said, Eastern Conference preview right here. We're going through all the teams,
Mm.
lineups, what we kind of think, additions, all that stuff, what our standings we think is going to be at the end of the season. So, I mean, let's jump right into it.
Yes, sir.
So let's start we're going to start from the bottom. So we're going to start with the Cavs.
Bare bottom.
They finished 19 and 46
Yeah.
last year, bottom of the league, bottom of the conference. Um, and to be honest, they didn't make that many moves.
No.
Moving forward this year, they're looking at probably Garland and Sexton as their guards. They drafted Okur, which I
Oh
think was
yeah.
a solid pickup for them. So
Yeah.
obviously they didn't win the lottery, so they didn't get a top three pick or anything like that. But he'll probably be their three, and then you still got Kevin Love, who's been in a lot of trade rumors,
Hmm.
Andre Drummond, and then their bench. They don't. I'm not. I don't know. I'm not a fan of their bench. They got
No.
their guard depth is real thin. Like it's kind of funny. I was talking about the other day. I was like, we're talking about like the bench we're talking about, and I was like, I'm not going to name people like Della Vadova, but Della
You're right
Vadova,
here.
yeah, but Della Vadova might actually right now be their backup point guard. They got Dante X, Dotson from the Knicks, and then Kevin Porter, who they drafted in the first round a couple years ago.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and then forward wise, they still have Larry Nance. They have Dylan Windler, who they drafted, I think, last year, the year before. Seti Osman. They signed JaVale McGee. That was like one of their only signings, and they have Thon Maker. So, what are your thoughts on this?
My thoughts are is that sounds terrible. Like, um, I don't know. I'm just thinking what other perks the Cavaliers organization throws in for season ticket members to bribe them. I don't know,
Well,
but um,
well, they don't have to worry about that problem this year. With probably most places won't have
that's
fans,
that's
so it's
true.
kind of like a,
Yeah,
you know,
you're right. But I don't know. I mean, they have Garland and Sexton. I feel like at some point they're gonna have to. I mean, they don't have to, but I don't know. It's just a weird pairing considering they don't have a lot of talent around them. So it's like you don't really know what you have really because they're trying to throw lobs to Drummond and McGee. I mean, that's not really ideal.
Larry
Um,
Nance too. He got some
okay,
bounce.
okay, whatever, dude. But yeah, the Cavaliers. I mean, I guess you just keep going. But like you said, Kevin Love, I feel like they have to do that at some point. That's really what they have where they can get some value or picks in return. I feel like they got to make that move at some point.
Yeah, and it's kind of tough because Kevin Love's been stuck there ever since LeBron and
Yeah, I
Kyrie
know.
left, and
That's
he's
so
just stuck.
sad.
But like you said, I don't see the vision for this team because I've seen one like front office exec said something about Colin Sexton's just a glorified role player.
Dear
Um,
God.
so I mean he hasn't been that great in the NBA. Garland, I mean he was a rookie last year, but it's kind of eh. Obviously you have Kevin Love just getting older, Drummond getting older, where you don't see them like in the future. So pretty much the only addition, like I said, is like mainly Okur. I mean, I don't know. They have all these players that they've drafted: Kevin Porter, Dylan Windler. Like they haven't really shown out yet. So I don't think it's going to be a good year for them at all. Um, I
There's,
just don't see the
yeah.
direction they're going. Really don't. I really don't.
Yeah, I don't know. It reminds me of like the Hornets of the last couple years
Or the Knicks too.
or the Knicks. Oh,
Knicks.
absolutely. I mean, the Knicks every year, but
Yeah.
um, it's one of those teams that's like they won a championship 4 years ago, wasn't it? That's
Yeah. Something like
crazy.
that.
It's all bad. Yeah, I mean, there's not a ton to
Sluts in the
talk about
sewers. Yeah. Not much else with the Cavs. They need to make some moves though,
for
and it's
sure.
crazy they haven't gotten a deal done. Next up, the Hawks. They finished 20 and 47. Now they made a lot of moves. Obviously
Ton.
they still have Trey Young. That's their franchise player. They got Bogdanovich. I hope I didn't
Ah, that
kill
was
his
good.
name,
I saw it.
but there's rumors about him going to Milwaukee. That stuff fell through for whatever reason. And he signed with the Hawks, and it was supposed to be he was a restricted free agent. So like they were talking about matching it and all this stuff, but then the Kings never did. So they got Bogdanovich. They also signed Gallinari. It's kind of weird because I don't know if they'll start both of them together because they're kind of both shooters and stuff. They could, but then you're saying they don't have no wing defense when you got people like DeAndre Hunter off your bench that could fill a good starting spot to be that defender in the lineup.
Especially
Um,
with Trey at point, you need some defense.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. You need some defense. So I don't know if they're
Yeah,
going to split them, but you also have John Collins and Capella who I would assume would start, and maybe they bring one of the shooters off the bench. I'm not sure, but I like those two pickups. They also brought in Rondo, Chris Dunn, and they still got Kevin Horter or whatever his name is. I probably killed his name.
yeah, that was
But
bad.
he's a solid shooter as well
Yeah,
for their guard depth and their forward depth. They have, like I said, they have DeAndre Hunter, Cam Reddish. They were both first round picks. They drafted the Big O, Onyeki Okorodu. I
yeah,
don't know,
yeah.
but
Just
from
call him Big O.
USC.
Yeah,
Yeah, Big O. That's what I know him as from USC though. So I think that was good for them. Another athlete for Trey Young, go rebound his deep threes and
for
stuff.
real.
Um, I mean that's probably their main rotation guys. Then you have people like Tony Snell, Solom Hill,
Okay, yep,
Bruno
we can stop.
Fernando that you don't really care about them at that point. But I like this team. They had a lot of good additions.
I'm sorry. Tony Snell has a clothing line and it's just a snail. He puts on like hoodies and stuff. And it just
Wait,
every time I
actually,
hear his yes, I promise, on beanies, it's a snail.
I feel bad because I never thought he was that bad of a player, but
I
now he's like
know.
he's a meme for that one game he played 30 minutes and had like zero stat lines. So now when I play now when I play 2K, if someone's has like zeros or something like that, maybe like one assist or something, they're like, "Oh yeah, you got that Tony
You
Snell."
got that
I'm
Tony
like,
Snell.
"Bro,
That's sad.
that I feel bad for him." But yeah, what are your thoughts about this team, man? I want to hear your thoughts.
I mean, I think we both agree they're going to be better than what they were last season, 100%. I don't know. They made so many moves. It's kind of hard to predict because, like you said, are they going to start both Bogdan and Gallinari? Because if they do, it's going to be a rough defense. But then if they don't, I mean, they've just paid them both quite a bit to be bench players. So um, they have so many players. It's like they can damn near make like two starting lineups with their bench. They have a pretty deep team. I feel like
Yeah,
if Reddish and and Herder, I don't know.
yeah, the shooter, yeah, the
Yeah, the
shooter.
shooter. I was calling the shooter. Step up. I don't know. I've heard a lot of talks again. Take this with a grain of salt. Of John Collins maybe not wanting
Being
out, but
moved.
they're gonna have to pay him soon.
Yeah,
And they got Capella. They got Big O.
yeah, but say that's probably that could have been in the because I was kind of confused at first. I mean, this team is kind of weird because like they had pretty good drafts, like but
Yeah,
like they
for
drafted two
sure.
guards. You drafted Trey Young and Hoyter recently, shooter.
Just call
So
him
you have two
shooter,
guards,
please.
shooter. But then no, but then you got Cam Reddish and DeAndre Hunter, both wings,
Yeah,
like pretty solid wings coming in. And then you have John Collins and Big O, both like athletic bigs. So it's like
had some great drafts.
you got a lot of players that are pieces that are developed like to develop and like really good pieces. Is just the thing is that like they're all going to be in the rotation right now, and how do they mesh? Um, but now they added some shooting, which I think is good. They added like Rondo, a veteran, who I think is going to fit in great for this team. He'll probably help Trey Young a lot.
And I like Dunn on defense. He was one of the top
Chris
defensive
Dunn, yeah,
guards. Just his offense is shaky, but
yeah, and honestly, yeah, I think this is a playoff team, and I think they're they're gonna have to figure out what rotations and stuff they're gonna do. But I think one thing, like they got all those shooters, and you got someone like with the passing ability like Rondo, and like he can run pick and roll with Capella, John Collins, and he has shooters space it. So when Rondo comes in, and Trey Young is a pretty good passer as well. So I think they're gonna be a really good team. They got a good mix of veterans and young players. So um,
yeah,
you got
no,
anything else on them?
yeah. I mean, they're set up pretty great for the future. It's almost overwhelming, not in a bad way, but it's like they have so many good players to figure it out. So that'll be the main thing is just figuring it out. They're gonna be better than they were last year. It's just how far are they gonna go? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Now next up, we got you ready for this?
No thanks.
Detroit basketball.
No,
Come on.
no,
We got
dude.
the Detroit Pistons,
Yes, sir.
20 and 46 last year. They actually made a lot of moves. Now, two big moves they made, they took players from my Denver Nuggets. They took Jeremy Grant. He could have signed back with Denver for the same amount of money, but he signed with the Pistons because he wanted a larger offensive role, which is kind of, I don't know. I mean, I guess
No, the
if he feels like he's that type of
Pistons.
player, that helps, but he doesn't want to be on a contender. And they also signed Mason Plumlee from Denver, so who was another good rotational player. So they got both of them. They'll probably both start. I'm looking at their lineup right now. It's kind of weird. I'm thinking Derrick Rose. I'm thinking Derrick Rose and Killian Hayes, the dude from overseas.
Mm,
I feel like they both start together. And
yeah,
kind of like both play guard. Then you got Jeremy Grant, Blake Griffin, and Mason Plumlee. I'm assuming that's gonna be
that's
their
a weird lineup,
that's a weird lineup,
but
but I
that's
think
all they can do.
that's probably gonna be their starting lineup. But
Yeah.
I really don't like their bench. At guard, they got Delon Wright, who's all right, Wayne
Mm,
Ellington, and the next guard I could think of is they drafted Saban Lee in the second round, who I
yikes.
know I've rebounded for him stuff and workouts and stuff, but I don't think he's NBA ready right now. I think he's like a development pick, so he might not be in the rotation. But there are other guards like Wright
Dude,
and
they're
Ellington. I'm
thin.
not sold on them. I feel like that's thin at guard. Forward, they got Josh Jackson. They drafted Sekou Bay from Villanova, who
Yeah.
I don't know, he might be solid. Jalil Okafor they signed, which I think that's a pretty good signing. And then they still have Sekou Dombue or whatever, the dude he drafted. I forget where he was from, but he was like that. He was drafted like super young. I think last year, the year before, he's like 18 or 19, like one of the younger people in
Oh,
the
I
draft.
think I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, he was like an international. They drafted him in the first round. I
Wow.
mean, he might be in the rotation. They drafted Isaiah Stewart from Washington this year. They got Mikhailo, who used to be on the Lakers, and he played at Kansas. And they got the dude Musa from who used to be on the Nets. I don't. The reason why I had to name all these people because I don't know what they're like on this bench. I don't know who's gonna play. Like it's not like a set where you're like, okay, these players are gonna play. Like they have all these players, and like I don't know who's gonna be in the rotation off the bench.
Dude, that they may be the worst team in the league. Because I'm with you. I'm just confused just hearing the names. Like I can't visualize them all going out on a court and playing basketball like as a group. And like I don't know. Well, let's say I mean God forbid, knock on wood, Blake Griffin has a down year again or gets injured or isn't playing a lot of games. Like dear God, what are they gonna
Yeah,
like? Who are they going to?
yeah,
I don't know.
yeah. And I don't. Yeah, I'm not a fan of their team,
To
uh,
say the least.
to say the least. Yeah, and like I said off the bench, the only person that you might say is guaranteed going to be in the rotation is probably Jalil Okafor.
And that's not
And
that.
I mean, he hasn't been in rotations in other places, but like, and he could maybe. No, I don't think he'll start over Mason Plumlee, but you never know. Like, 'cause he's one of those guys who like he might have like a 20-point game randomly, and
Yeah,
then but do nothing else. And then Josh Jackson, like he's been bounced around. I don't know, like this their bench is really like I'm not a fan of the bench. Their starting lineups all right. I like Grant and Plumlee.
yeah.
But like you're not saying this their starting lineup has a lot of firepower anyways.
God
And you
no.
got to see how Killian Hayes is as well.
Exactly.
Um and maybe they start Wayne Ellington, who's always been a solid role player, but you're not really scared of playing against Wayne Ellington at the same time.
Yeah,
Um
not
so
much
yeah,
else.
I
And
don't think they're gonna be a
but
good
it's
team.
also like they don't have a ton of trade pieces. I mean, nobody's
Yeah.
going all in on Blake Griffin or I mean, a
I,
contender could get D Rose for something, but that's about it.
they pretty much just have like prospects that other people didn't want, like Josh Jackson,
Yeah.
Mikhailo, and Musa from the Nets. Like they were young players that never played in other like they didn't play much at other places, and they were just their young prospects.
And
But
what
they have like the dude they drafted from Villanova. I
so I
honestly
was
haven't
gonna
seen much on him, so maybe he's good. I've heard of and seen Isaiah Stewart play. He's solid, but like again, kind of like I said with Saban Lee, like these are kind of guys that might not be ready right away. The dude, I think the guy from Villanova will definitely be in the rotation though.
I
I
will
said Q
too.
Bay.
And last thing, it'll be quick. I mean, this kind of goes for all teams of prospects. It makes me sad whenever promising prospects like Killian Hayes and Bay and even Stewart, they go to teams like this where it's confusing on who they are, what they're doing,
Yeah,
and it's like they don't waste years in the league, but it's it
they
I
never
don't
blew
know,
up,
it
and they
sucks.
kind
Yeah,
of maybe they if they win a better situation and could develop, maybe they could have a better career
exactly.
compared to playing in a bad situation, probably not playing well because you're on a bad team, and
Yeah,
then kind of they're not looked at as good anymore and stuff like that.
A team with no
Uh,
identity because the Hawks were bad last season, but they kind of had an identity going forward.
yeah, exactly. And moving on to like a team like that, there's actually a perfect example. The New York Knicks. They finished last year with
Good lord,
at 21 and 45. I mean, this is kind of the same thing. Now their team,
yep.
this team, right? What I have as their lineup, it could change. It's not really set, but I have Alfred Payton playing the one.
Oh my lord.
They signed him. Alec Burks maybe starting at the two. RJ Barrett maybe at the three, and then I think these next two are probably set. Julius Randle at the four and Mitchell Robinson at the five. Those two will probably locks.
Dude,
Um,
whenever I hear that lineup, I don't. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong. I know you know a little bit more about basketball than me. I don't hear any like knockdown shooters. Like everybody, it feels like everybody's gonna be in the paint on that team.
yeah, the only one I'd say is like Alec Burks is a
But if
solid
that's your
shooter.
top, if that's your
Yeah,
top one,
you're not like wow. Yeah, and especially like you said, Alfred and RJ Barrett, he was supposed to. I mean, he was a what top five pick, and he was supposed to be. People were saying he could have been the best one in the draft that year. I don't know. He hasn't turned out. They still have Kevin Knox, who
oh my
did
lord,
not pan out at all. Frank Ntilikina, who they drafted, who didn't pan out either. Then they signed Austin Rivers, which is a good. I think he'll probably be the sixth man. I think it's good for New York because he can come in and um, like score. So maybe fans. I mean, I guess there won't be fans at the games, but like
use points, yeah.
kind of like that guy who can score. I guess like he's kind of fun. Maybe he'll like
kind
make a
of.
make a highlight play. Like at this point,
Dive for a
I
ball out
don't
of
know.
bounds, yeah.
Like they're down 20, comes in and like hits like two threes and just going crazy.
Like a
I don't
Linsanity,
know.
yeah. You're gonna have,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, exactly. Like
Okay.
no, but they also got Dennis Smith, who this is another like example where I'm
Mm,
saying like he was a solid player in Dallas, went to New York, and now like his just
that's
fell
wild.
off. I mean, he's been hurt a little bit. He's played, but he hasn't been great. Another player, a shooter, I guess, is Reggie Bullock, and then they also drafted Eman quickly from Kentucky. So he'll probably be in the rotation. But I feel like they have so many. Like you look at their guards, like you have Dennis Smith
My
young,
God, yeah.
quickly rookie, and Frank still young. Like who's gonna play? Are you giving up on one of these guys that are still young, and should be developing, or like I don't know. It's tough. But then their front court, like I said, they have Kevin Knox. They drafted Obi Toppin, who I
Yeah.
think is not. I don't think he's going to be good for them. I think if he went somewhere else, he could have been a good role player. But for
Yeah.
them,
Like
they just
what?
don't have enough firepower. And then they have Michael Kidd Gilchrist and Nerlens Noel, who's solid off the bench. But
Good God.
this team, like I don't like the identity of this team. You're looking at their leading scorer. You're probably telling me it's Julius Randle, their leading scorer. Like who's going to score the ball?
Dude, I don't even know. I'm
I
right
mean,
there
you like
with
Mitchell
you.
Robinson, like he'll
Yeah.
rebound and he's a good player, he's a good center, catch lobs, but like who's scoring the ball on this team? Like you tell me RJ Barrett like has to come alive.
Dude, it's
And really
just
if you look at the team, their second best scorer is probably Austin Rivers.
I know. Yeah, it's and we got to keep this in account too. Tom Thibodeau's the coach, so this is about to be. Um,
Gritty. They're gonna be gritty though.
they're gonna be gritty,
This is kind
but
of gritty. This
they
is
have to be because well, that actually well, it's not gonna work out, but they all are kind of players teams didn't win or didn't pan out. So, dude, they could all band together and become just a grit and grind. Like, okay, I kind of like that, but it's not gonna happen.
yeah. Or they're players the Knicks wanted and they just didn't
That's what
turn
I was
out
gonna
good
say. Let's
drafting.
talk about the Knicks drafting, dude. Their best draft pick recently was KP, and they traded him away. Like, what are they doing? It doesn't
Yeah,
make sense.
they've drafted Kevin Knox, Frank Ntilikina recently, RJ Barrett. And now you add Emmanuel Quickly and Obi Toppin. I don't know. I
But
don't know.
but it's just one of those teams. They just don't have an identity, and I don't know what the recipe for that is, but it's sure as hell not signing Austin Rivers, Michael Kidd Gilchrist, and Nerlens Noel as your free agents. I mean, they gotta. I don't know. It just makes me sad because Dennis Smith Jr. is not that bad, and he looked bad in New York. He was solid in Dallas. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I don't know. Hopefully Tom helps. Who knows? Maybe they'll turn into a real NBA team.
Yeah, I don't know. But enough about the New York Knicks. They're going to be at the bottom of the league again. Um,
Damn.
Next up, the Chicago Bulls. This team kind of has more of an identity than these last couple teams, but you're probably looking at Kobe White, who actually had a pretty good rookie season for what
Yeah.
it's worth. I think a lot of people didn't expect him to play how he did. Zach Levine, obviously, you're pretty much your star player. At the three, it'll probably either be Otto Porter or Patrick Williams.
Mm.
I could see them start, but I don't know how ready they feel.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's from Florida State, and he was like one of the youngest players in the draft, so
Hmm.
he'll definitely be in the rotation though. Drafted at I believe fifth. And they have Laurie Marketing, solid four. Um, and then Wendell Carter probably at your five. But off your bench, I don't really like their guard depth here either. They got Tomas Satoransky.
I was Sanaransky. Damn, dude.
Yeah, I know he. Hey, I'm bad. I'm
It's
bad with names. I'm bad with
like
names.
19 syllables. All right.
I'm not sure. Like, I mean, he. I guess like you're not like he's okay rotational backup point guard, but you're not. I'm not scared to load up like you're playing against Tomas.
I'm playing Tomas.
So
I'm just, yeah.
But then they got Garrett Temple as well,
Good
okay
Lord.
shooting guard off the bench, and then the another one who's been um playing a little bit for them, Ryan Arcadia. I don't know how to say his name,
I
but
don't
he's
even
from
know who that is.
Villanova. He's from Villanova, so um not really. You're not their guard depth. It's kind of eh.
Yeah.
And then forwards, like I said, either Otto Porter or Patrick Williams in the rotation. Denzel Valentine, Chandler Hutchinson, who's one of their draft picks a couple years
Mm.
ago. He actually played against him at GCU, but he's kind of still like that prospect type of player. Um, then they got Thaddeus Young, who's solid off the bench.
Wow.
Daniel Gafford from, I believe, Arkansas, who they drafted in the second round, I believe, last year or the year before. Um, and then Noah Vonleh they got from Denver, who I think he could get in the
Wow.
rotation, but
That's all
he
I was
seems
gonna
like someone
say. He should be on a
he,
he's solid.
he's solid. He didn't really get much in the rotation in Denver, but you know how Denver they're really deep,
They're
so
deep, yeah.
he'll probably get in this rotation. But yeah, what are your thoughts on the Chicago Bulls?
I don't know. I mean, we're gonna be repetitive, but it's just another one of those teams where, I mean, it they just have a lot of okay players. I mean, one thing I will say is as much Billy Donovan's the new coach, right?
Yes, I believe
If I
so.
remember correctly. I'm not a huge fan of Billy Donovan's, but I think he's better than the sergeant they had last year. That was just like it was like a military base. I think he'll be better for them, but I don't know. I mean, they're not making the playoffs, so it's like what I don't know. It's like what are they doing? And that's not an attractive free agency destination either. You're not like, hey man,
Yeah,
you're gonna room with Garrett Temple and Noah Vonleh. Like you coming or not? No, I'm not. That's not fun.
yeah, and there was talks about Anthony Davis, but I mean,
God
obviously
no.
that wasn't gonna happen. But I will say like this team has a little bit more of identity. Like I said,
Yeah,
like you got a couple pieces, like Zach Levine, is gonna be your leading scorer. Laurie Marketing's kind of been solid. He can space the floor and stuff like that, but you're not really like he's just a solid like power forward, I guess, that can stretch the floor. Kobe White, I mean, he's still young. I mean, they might, I guess, roll with him as PG. And then Wendell Carter, he kind of hasn't lived up to what I feel like he was supposed to be. I think he's more of a bench rotational player than your
yeah,
starting center, but he's not bad. And
no.
then Patrick Williams, I know a lot of people didn't like that pick, to be honest. Just because I think he didn't even start at Florida State.
Like 10 minutes
Um,
a game.
yeah, yeah, but and you're drafting him at five. I don't know. I think this team was someone who probably wanted Lamelo Ball. I feel like,
Yeah, that'd have been
um,
big.
just kind of yeah to maybe sell some tickets in a year that no tickets are being sold, but maybe in the future. But
So I mean, I feel like it comes down to sorry to cut you off, but I mean it reminds me of the Mavericks. Like we were garbage at the end of Dirk's career. Then it's
mhm,
all about a having like a good foundation and coach, which is
yeah,
big, and then you just got to hit on your draft picks, and
yeah,
then that will entice free agents and trades and things like that. So they just got to figure some of those things out. So hopefully Billy Donovan's the answer, but I don't know.
yeah, and like like their draft pick, it's like Patrick Williams. I feel like, I mean, in my opinion, his probably ceiling's not that high. Like I think he
Yeah,
could be like a maybe a good rotational player or even like like starter, but he's not going to be like your star player. So it's not like they took a player off of like superstar like potential. Like you gotta see sometimes that
At
just don't pan out. Like
5
like
too.
compare like here's an example. RJ Barrett. Like RJ Barrett was someone who's supposed to have like superstar potential.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Patrick Williams, I just don't see the potential. Which is not always a bad thing, but
Yeah,
um
but the
it's just like
Bulls
they're
need that.
the Bulls kind of need that. You have Zach Levine um as your star player. The
Yeah,
Knicks, like I said, the same thing with the Knicks with Obi. Like I don't see that star potential, but
exactly,
and they need that because Julius Randle's their best player. But
exactly.
let's move on to the next team, the Hornets. They finished the year 23-42, and they got someone who I feel like has that star potential.
Yeah,
And LaMelo Ball, everyone's loving it. This team, they made some moves. They drafted LaMelo. They signed Gordon Hayward. I mean that's their two main picks. They also drafted Vernon Carey, who I think was one of those players coming out of high school that was really hyped up, but he didn't really play well at Duke, I believe it was. He didn't really
hmm,
have a good year at Duke, so his kind of draft stock dropped. But they still, I think they'll probably play Lamelo and Devonte Graham together. Gordon Hayward will probably be the three. Um, the four is kind of interesting. They could play PJ Washington, who was solid,
yeah.
or it could be Miles Bridges. Like I don't know who they'll start. Um, and then also Cody Zeller will probably start the five. You're not
Oof,
really,
God.
yeah. The backup guards, Terry Rozier, who I mean they paid a
Mm,
lot of money, and
yeah,
Devonte Graham really took over the team when it was supposed to be Terry Rozier's team. Malik Monk, who's kind of he's had some flashes, but like he hasn't been consistent at all. And then they got the
no,
Martin twins off the bench. Jalen McDaniels, who they drafted last year, I believe, who kind of young. He was supposed to be like a prospect coming
yeah.
out of college, kind of, I don't know if he'll be ready. And then Bismack Biyombo, their backup center. Um, so I don't know. This team, what do you think of this team, man?
I I weirdly, I probably could be some one of the only ones in the country, but their top 6 players who we named, PJ Washington, Miles Bridges, like let's say they're 5 and 6. I don't know. I think they got a lot better. I don't like paying Gordon Hayward that much at all, but um, for a team that's been so bad, this is how you break out of it. You hit on a draft pick, you get some solid players, and I mean that's a solid starting lineup. I don't like Cody Zeller and Biombo as your backup. They probably need to figure out the big situation, but and I don't like their bench at all. Dear God, like that bench is not doing it for me. But I don't know. That's a good way to get fans and get um, solid basketball. Because, like you said, Lamelo. I mean, it's kind of just eye test. You can kind of just see he's going to be a damn good player. So I don't know. I think the Hornets got substantially better considering you got to guard Lamelo and Devonte Graham. I mean, that's a pretty solid backcourt.
Yeah, yeah, they'll definitely be a fun team to follow. They had a good offseason. I like LaMelo pick. I think he has the potential to be the best player in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously Wiseman's great. And who went number one? Anthony Edwards,
Oh yeah, yeah.
which I think LaMelo will probably be better than him long term.
I agree.
But yeah, that's a good pick. Obviously, with the Hornet, their roster before was god awful. Like their
Yeah,
best player was Devontae Graham, who I think was either a second round pick or undrafted. So
yeah,
he was hooping for them. He should have got most improved. So but then you also bring in Gordon Hayward, who before the injury that he had was an all star. So
yeah.
um, that's going to help them. He's someone who could average 20 a game. And
Exactly.
then you still got solid young players like PJ Washington, Miles Bridges, Malik Monk, who hasn't really lived up, but he's shown flashes and he can score the ball. Like he could have just one of those like J.R. Smith games where he just goes crazy. So um, I like this team. They probably won't be ready right away, but they'll definitely be better. And now they don't have the worst roster and that one of the worst rosters I would say in the league. So
I agree, and I like it because Melo's going to come in and be their star, be their starter, their leader, and that's going to take pressure off of Malik, PJ, Miles to fill their roles. I feel like they were
yeah,
having to be too much last year.
yeah. Like Malik Monk, he was drafted high, a lot of high expectations. Same with
Yeah,
Miles Bridges. Compared to now, all everyone's looking at Lamelo, and now they can kind of fit in and don't have the pressure to be a star necessarily, but
exactly,
kind of just be a good player. Yeah, that's
for
true.
sure.
Next up, this is actually a team that went to the bubble because they were on the brink of the playoffs, how they did it. The Washington Wizards. they didn't have really a chance to make it in, but they finished the year 25-47. Obviously, they played more games than the others because they went to the bubble. But big news, they traded for Westbrook,
Yeah.
got rid of John Wall, and a later, like it's like a
It's a pretty protected
2024.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, it's protected too. So you got Westbrook now, Bradley Beal. At the three, you're looking at the Denny Advija or something like that. I don't know. I'm bad with names, but he's
Oh
from
yeah, the dude from
Israel.
yeah.
Israel.
I
Yeah, yeah.
forgot.
So he
Wow.
could start, or it'll be Troy Brown, who they drafted, I think last year, the year before,
Hmm.
from Oregon, I believe. Um, they'll either one of them will be the three. Not sure, but I've heard a lot of good things about the guy from Israel that he's supposed to be
Yeah.
legit. And then they got Roy Hachimura,
Hmm.
who was really good last year for them. I think he's a good player. And then
Wow.
Thomas Bryant at the five. Their bench though is kind of weird. I mean, it seems like all the Eastern Conference teams, like their bench is just like I don't know.
God.
Their backup guards, you have Ish Smith, Rule Neto, um,
Dear God. That's
Cash Winston, who they drafted this year.
oh
I think that's
wow.
a really good pick from Michigan State. And I think
Yeah.
I think he's a player who can be ready to play like right away. I know people love their 18 and 19-year-olds that they draft, but someone who's played out of Michigan State, really good pick and roll
Yeah.
player. I've watched him in college for years. I think he's going to be really good. And
Wow.
then Jerome Robinson's their other backup guard. So
Yeah.
you're just still though not you're not like fearful of their guards. And then their backup forwards, obviously either the guy from Israel or Troy Brown off the bench. Isaac Bonga, who was kind of a project. He came from the Lakers in that trade. Forget who it was, but they got
It was
also
Dwight
Mo.
Howard, right? Was it the Dwight Howard trade?
I don't. It might have. I don't know. It might have been,
Oh, I
but
don't
they
know.
got
I'm tripping.
Bonga and Mo Wagner, who was solid at Michigan. He's okay off the bench. They signed Davis Puertons.
Yeah.
Used to be on San Antonio, who he could start over Roy. You're not sure, but they paid him a lot of money to come back. Good shooter, space the floor, which I think is good for Westbrook. And then Robin Lopez they also signed. So
Okay.
their front court bench is solid. You got like I said, Troy Brown, Puertons or whatever, Wagner and Robin. So, but their guard depth, not really scared of, not fearful. Um, but yeah, what do you think of the Wizards?
Um, I like them. I think they're with the Hornets. They were kind of dookie last year. I mean, with Wall being out. But
That definitely doesn't help. Yeah,
yeah, but I like them this year. I think they just got a little bit better to have a chance to make the playoffs, sneak in. I mean, they're not going to go to the finals or anything like that, but um, yeah, Cassius or I don't know how you say his name.
Cash Winston,
Yeah, okay, yeah,
Cassius
Winston.
Winston. Yeah,
Yeah, he's a dog. I think him being with Beal and Westbrook, like he's gonna develop pretty quickly, and I think like be their second unit starter, like
yeah,
or
I
run the
think so
second
too.
unit. Um, and then I completely forgot about Denny. I think that's a great draft pick. I mean, he's not going to be a star coming in, I don't think, but he's going to come in. He's going to contribute. And I, I weirdly like Beal and Westbrook together. I mean, it's not going to. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I don't know. I don't know. I don't think they're going to make some crazy push, but um, it's better than they've been the last few years
Yeah, I think they did really good because obviously, I think they won the trade first of all because
for
one
sure.
Westbrook is more reliable. John Wall hasn't played since like 2018, I think it
Yeah,
was. So like obviously they would be a better team if John Wall had been playing, but he hasn't been. So getting him, Denny, and like those international players usually come over more ready than college players that are 18 or 19. So um he hopefully is solid for them. It's kind of too soon to see. Obviously playing international, haven't seen much of him. But Westbrook, I feel like he's like one of those guys that can lead a team to the playoffs. I don't think he can win in the playoffs, but
mm,
I think they're definitely. I think they might be a playoff team. And like they got Rui. Obviously, Thomas Bryant. He's solid, but not really sure. The problem with this team, though, I could see is just kind of consistent shooting. Um, Obviously Bradley
yeah,
Beal, but like with Westbrook, you're not sure. Um, Outside of what you got, Bradley Beal, Portons, and then it's kind of
that's
after that, you're
about
not
it.
sure. Now maybe
Yeah,
if Denny's a really good shooter, like I said, I haven't seen much. So if he can bring shooting, that would really help. But um,
I'm just
I
worried
feel
about
like
their
they could use
bench.
yeah, like a bench shooter.
He's something.
like a guard that's a really good shooter that
Yeah,
outside of Bradley Beal Westbrook. But I think they're a team that could sneak into the playoffs and get first rounded. So
but I agree with you. I think they won the trade
they definitely did. Yeah, I don't because they're in a situation where like they just kind of probably want to be a playoff team, and the Rockets are in like a finals situation, and I don't think John Wall gets the Rockets to the finals. Like
but I also do think I think John Wall may fit better with Harden as well.
I think so too. Yeah, but I think the problem too is how has Westbrook's trade value went down that bad, where you're trading for someone who hasn't played since 2018 and getting like a super protected first
For
when he
sure.
was an MVP literally 2 years ago, where you could probably got so much more. Look at
That's
how
true.
much the Thunder. Look how much the Thunder got for Westbrook. Like
A ton.
that's crazy though how life works.
Like 8 months earlier, not like a year
Yeah, you could have
earlier.
got a bunch. Like he was
Yeah.
MVP, and like now you're getting a similar but injured player and a protected first.
Yeah, I agree.
Stunning. Next up, the Magic. They were the 8 seed last year. They made the playoffs in the bubble. They finished 33-40 though, not a playoff team record, you would say. They didn't really do much. They now Jonathan Isaac got hurt in the bubble, so I don't know if he'll play or not.
I don't
I
remember.
forget how long his injury was. I don't know if it was like a torn ACL or something. It might have been. It was a bad
I think
it
it
was
was
something.
actually. Yeah.
It was a major one. So he might not even play this year.
Yikes.
Um we have Markel Fultz, who's played better actually in
Yeah.
Orlando. Evan Fournier, Aaron Gordon, who had actually been in trade talks, not
Hmm.
sure, and Vucevic, who seems like is always talking about being moved but never gets moved.
Yeah.
They drafted Cole Anthony, solid pick. Carter Williams off the bench, Terrence Ross, who might start for them now with Jonathan Isaac probably being out, and then you got James Ennis, Aminu, Mo Bamba, Gary Clark, and Chuma Okeke. I think they drafted him this year. Um, and I think in the first round, I believe. I don't know what pick that he went, but he's from or last year. They drafted him last year from Auburn. Drafted him last year, first round pick from Auburn,
Okay.
2019 draft. So I don't think he really was in the rotation, but hope a year under his belt, probably get play more. I don't know. Like, what do you think of the Orlando Magic?
I mean, I can only see them getting worse. I mean, you lose Isaac, and your only major addition was Cole Anthony. I mean, I see one of the other
Yeah,
teams like Charlotte or the Wizards jumping over them. And um, I mean, what they made the playoffs the last at least 2 years. Was
yeah,
it three
they're
years?
always in the playoffs
Weird.
somehow. Like,
But I see that streak ending. But then it's like, okay, cool. We made the playoffs the last 2 years. Where do we go now? I mean, you don't have a ton of trade assets. You don't have a ton of young talent. It's kind of they're just a weird middling team. So, I mean, if I'm them, I trade Aaron Gordon if there's something good for him. I mean, I could see Terrence Ross going to a contender. He's a solid piece of that. Um, and I mean, I do like Fultz. I'm with you. I think he's gotten better. I don't think he's ever going to live up to his hype before, but he's good. We'll see what Cole Anthony is, but it's like, oh, okay.
yeah, I think they're definitely not gonna be a playoff team, just mainly because of Jonathan Isaac out. Now with Jonathan Isaac, you're saying their lineup, starting lineup's not bad. Like you got Vucevic, who I think he's been an All Star before.
Yeah.
Like he's really good player. You probably don't want him as your best player,
No.
but and he's not a traditional. He is a traditional big, but not for today's NBA. He's not a traditional big.
Yeah.
Um, and then you got like I said, if you had Jonathan Isaac, you Aaron Gordon, Evan Fournier, and Fultz, like that's a solid starting lineup. But then I just feel like it's not enough firepower when you also don't have a firepower off the bench. Like Cole Anthony, I think could fit that because he's one of those players that kind of have that star potential. He was really big out of like high school. He was supposed to be like like top 5, top 10 pick. Didn't have a great year at North Carolina, so it's kind of like that boom or bust type situation. But he can really supposed to be able to score the ball. So outside of that though, like Mo Bamba, I don't know if he's been hurt or
I don't
he
know
just
what it
hasn't lived
is.
up. I don't know. I know it's tough. Just another team that just don't have firepower.
Yeah, it's just like all these players or should be like they're all pretty good bench players on good teams, which comes together and makes a solid starting five. But it's like I don't know. they don't have a ton set up for the future. And correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like, and this may just because they went to the same school, but Cole Anthony, Colby White, are there any similarities there? I feel like kind of
Ooh.
score. They're they're both just pretty good scorers, but I don't know if I could ever see them either or being a star, superstar.
Yeah, I think Cole Anthony kind of has maybe like a higher ceiling than
Okay.
Kobe White. But he struggled at North Carolina. He did
Yeah.
not have a good year, so that's why he dropped, obviously. So, um, but yeah, I don't think he'll be a star, but he could score the ball. So maybe I think it's good for them to have someone who
That's
can score the ball off their
that's true.
bench because their
Yeah.
team is well. But we do see two people who struggle in college. Sometimes the NBA fits their style more, where like people who can just score the ball, they can. It's easier in them in the NBA than college, where teams might run a zone or something. So
Yeah, it's true.
next up, now we get into the fun teams. I think we've
Thank
gotten
God.
out of the gutters.
Whew. All right.
Yeah, the Brooklyn Nets. They were 35 and 37 last year, but they had injuries. We got Kyrie back, Kevin Durant back. You're looking at a starting lineup, probably Kyrie. I'm thinking probably Levert maybe. I feel like they start Joe Harris to give them a shooter.
Yeah.
Maybe Kevin Durant at the 4 with Jared Allen in there. I think that could be their lineup. They obviously have Spencer Dinwiddie off the bench. They traded for Landry Shamet. They also have Bruce Brown, Tyler Johnson. They brought in Jeff Green. They have Torian Print. They brought in, or they've had DeAndre Jordan,
Mhm.
and then they also got Timothy
Oh yeah,
Luwawu-Cabarrot or
I
whatever.
know you're
So
talking about. Yeah.
they have a really good players. There's rumors about them trading some of those players for James Harden, which we haven't seen happen yet. I don't know if the Rockets are willing to pull the trigger. But what do you think we finally get to see Kyrie and Durant?
I'm super excited. I feel I'm excited for Kevin Durant. I mean, he's one of the best players in the league whenever he's healthy, and I'm excited for Kyrie too. Um, I don't know. I feel like they're both players that other players, media, and people don't like a lot because they're different. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're
They
different
do
dudes.
things their way, which is I respect. But
Kyrie said he's not talking to the media all year.
are you serious?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Dear God. And Kevin Durant, I saw his interview the other day after practice, and he didn't look super excited about it. So yeah, that's just who they are. A couple things. One, I love the Shamit trade. That's another knockdown shooter with Joe Harris,
Yeah.
which is what they need. But I feel like they almost have too many guards. I don't. I think they need to trade one of them, whether it's
Either Dinwiddie
Dinwiddie
or
or Levert.
Levert.
It's got to be one of them. As much as I mean, I like both of them a lot. So I think that's good for them because they're going to get something in return. But I think they got to pull that trigger and get something. I don't know what it is. Even if it's not the Harden thing, they gotta do something
Yeah, maybe you're looking at like maybe like an upgrade at like a 3-and-D type of
for
player.
sure. Yeah.
Um, because like they're bigs, like DeAndre and Jared Allen are really good. Um, like your 3-and-D, like obviously like Shamit's kind of supposed to fit that, but I don't think he's like an elite defender. Um, maybe you're saying Jeff Green, but haven't seen much of him. So, but this team, I think they're going to be really good. Obviously,
Yeah.
with Kyrie and Durant, and obviously still having Dinwiddie and Levert. They're in the East. I think they'll be one of the best teams in the East. And whenever you have Kyrie and Durant, like it's teams are not going to want to see that in the playoffs. So,
Something
um,
else we need to consider though is they're also first time playing together a full season and they're coming back from injury. So we'll see how
yeah,
that plays out.
that is true. Yeah, it feels like we haven't seen Durant playing forever.
I know.
All right, next up, the 76ers. They had a lot of changes. They fired Brent Brown. They brought in Doc Rivers. Daniel Morey said he's done being a GM. Like he says he resigns and then he joins the
Dude,
Sixers
who the
staff. Like
hell
how does
is
that happen?
I don't know, dude. That was so
Like
bad. He like put out a
that was
release.
so
He's like,
weird.
I want to spend time with my family. I want to get into hiking. I want to buy a cabin. And then he's like, never mind, I'm going to
Go to
76ers. And I
Sixers. Like
was
I
like,
don't know.
damn,
Yeah,
that
I
was
don't know.
bad in Houston.
They've they struggled though in a lot in the bubble. Ben Simmons got hurt.
Yeah.
They've kind of just blew it up. They finished
Yeah.
43 and 30 last year. Not saying they blew up their whole team, but like
They
their
made a
front
lot of
office,
changes
their
though.
coach. There's a lot of changes for a team that
Yeah.
was a playoff team and had injuries. So, um, but you're looking at it. Ben Simmons probably running PG again. They brought in Seth Curry,
That's
which I think is a
solid.
good addition for them.
Yeah.
They brought in Danny Green, who I think is also another good one. I know
Yeah.
people love making fun of Danny Green. I still think Danny Green's a great
He's still a
player. Not a
playoff.
great player, great role player.
Yeah.
Um, then you got Tobias Harris still, who I think that's someone they shouldn't
Wow.
have paid.
Yeah, I
But
don't either, but he's solid, I guess.
yeah, he's solid, but they paid him a lot of
Yeah,
money.
dear
It was,
God. Wow, I forgot about
and
that.
then obviously you got Joel Embiid,
Hmm.
and then off the bench they drafted Tyrese
I
Maxey,
love
who
it.
I think I like that. Shake Middleton, who played a lot for them
Yeah,
actually in the bubble.
a ton.
Matisse Thybulle off the bench, I like him. They got Korksma, another shooter, European guy, and then they also brought in Dwight Howard, Tony
Wow, I forgot
Bradley.
about that.
They got Terrence Ferguson from OKC, and then they also have Mike Scott. So a lot of new faces. Like they don't have Josh Richardson anymore. Um, who else was like big in the rotation? I know some of them. I think they just reloaded a lot. Like their depth is like a lot bigger. Oh, Al Horford, that was the other one they got rid of. Al
Yeah,
Horford.
that was big getting off that damn contract.
Yeah. So I mean, what's your thoughts on the Sixers?
I mean, we'll talk about it coming up on our standings preview, but I love what they did. I think a new coach was needed. I'm not a huge Doc Rivers fan, but I mean, he's going to get them to the playoffs. He's going to get them a high seed, and they're going to make some noise. Um, and they must see something and know something we don't. Because I mean, they're still trying to make the Simmons and Embiid work. So I mean, they're going to keep running it back. I mean, I don't know. I think we've talked about before. We judge pairings and teams too early. I mean, dear God, they're both still what 24,
Yeah.
and I mean, they've played together for two full seasons, three, two and a half, three. I don't know, but Seth Curry was on the Mavs, one of the highest shooting percentages of all time. That's perfect. They still have Fulton Tibbetts.
Korksmas,
Oh,
Cork,
Korsmas. Yeah, that's it.
Corkin, Korksmas. Yeah.
He's a good shooter. They got
Danny
I don't
Green,
Danny Green. Yeah, they
Shake
needed that.
Middleton. Like,
They needed
yeah.
the good shooters. They need people to play off the ball, and they need people to come in and play defense um and with some
Matisse
playoff
fits that.
experience. Matisse, yeah, that exact. Okay, that's what I was thinking of. Yeah, they have. I like their team a lot. I like what they did. Because I mean, Ben Simmons and Embiid are still two of the best players in the NBA. So you just gotta,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think they're definitely better than what they had. Like I don't think Al Horford and Embiid worked at all. You kind of just felt like there was never spacing. They'll obviously probably play Tobias Harris at the four, which I
Mm-hmm.
think fits him better. I just don't. I don't know. I think it's gonna be tough for them when it comes down to it. Um, like late game, that's where it gets tough. Like who you going to? Like you going to Embiid?
Yeah.
Like that's where I think it's get tough. Like late game, who's taking the shot, who's taking over. I don't feel like they have that guy who's like when you see like Dame, when you see I mean Kyrie, we've seen it with when you see Kevin Durant, like players like that. Anthony Davis even, we've seen it a lot in the playoffs. Like when you get late in those playoff games, who is just taking over? And like Embiid, I don't trust it at the same level. You know what I mean? So that's my worry with them, or even like the Celtics, Jason Tatum. Like that's someone like I just feel a lot more confident with those guys than with this team. It's just kind of not
Because
dumping it down low because they're
to
not giving you a foul call. They're not giving you a foul
oh
call.
no,
So
and he's not. Yeah, and Tobias Harris is who they paid to be that kind of like
yeah,
their scorer, and he's
yeah.
not. So you're right. Yeah,
Or even the guy they had, Jimmy Butler. Like right
yeah,
now, Jimmy Butler, you go to him.
100%. Yeah,
So I think that I think they'll be a good team. They'll have a good record. They'll be a playoff team. But when it comes to the playoffs, I just don't see them getting over the top. Um, so it's kind of I don't know. That's just how. But they did. I like their team better. I like their team better. They had a lot of good additions. Added a lot of shooting. So
for sure.
um, we'll see. Now the team that made it to the finals out the East last year, the Miami Heat, 44 and 29 last year. They didn't do too much, but they were really good. They signed back Dragic. They still got Tyler Hero, Jimmy Butler, Mo Harkless. Did they sign him or was he on the team? I don't know. I just know
No,
he
they
was
signed him.
play. They signed him, so he wasn't playing. And they have Bam, obviously, who had a great year and he was great in the bubble. They lose Jay Crowder, so I think Harkless might fill that role for them.
Yeah,
And then off the bench, I mean, you got Kendrick Nunn still, who I think is I think he's solid off the bench, and I think that he should have played more
Yeah.
in the bubble. It's kind of weird how they're playing him. They brought in Avery Bradley, which is big for them. They still got Duncan Robinson, who could start, could come off the bench. Kind of don't know with them. Iggy, who's kind of on his last leg, to be honest. They brought back Myers Leonard, Kelly Olynyk. They got Casey Paula, who they drafted last year in the first round. He wasn't in the rotation, but I feel like another year they might. And then they drafted the guy from Kansas, I believe. No, Memphis. Memphis or Kansas,
Oh,
one of them.
Precious. Yeah.
Precious, yeah, Precious.
Yeah, I forgot. Okay.
What is he
Yeah.
from? Memphis or Kansas?
Memphis. He's from Memphis.
Memphis,
Yeah.
Memphis, right? Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's a good draft pick. I think it fits the
Yes.
Miami culture and stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
um, what are your thoughts on Miami? Can they run it back, get to the finals?
Dude, I think they can. I was just about to say, depending on how fast Precious develops, because a lot of people were saying, I didn't watch a ton of them, but he's kind of like Bam. That he's just a hustle. He's a dog you want on your team in the playoffs. He's got to develop fast because that only thing that worries me with them is their big depth. Because it's like if Bam gets in foul trouble or he's playing a lot, like
Mhm.
you're really not trying to go to Kelly and Myers in the playoff to play
Yeah,
defense.
I was surprised they signed back Myers because he didn't
Yeah,
really play much.
no,
Um,
like you
but I
think
mean,
about it,
Kelly comes in and he hits a shot sometimes, but like,
you don't want to
yeah,
play
you're
a
kind of not.
center.
Yeah, you're kind of don't know who you want to bring in up
I don't want
there.
him guarding Embiid or like any other people in the playoffs. Um, but yeah, they're gonna make a playoff. They're gonna get in the playoffs. They're gonna win the first round probably, depending on where they are. Um, and yeah, I mean they're built for the playoffs. I think that was a great experience early for Duncan, for Tyler, for Bam. Like they're like vets now, and you run it
Yeah,
back with that team. I think um, they're in a great position. I mean, losing Jay, we'll see how that goes. I mean, he wasn't a huge piece of their team, but um, hopefully Mo can fill that because, like you said, they didn't make a ton of changes or additions. So, and
yeah,
I'm excited to see Precious too. Actually,
yeah. And I think, like I said, Avery Bradley's another one. That's a
yeah,
like good
yeah,
addition that will fit them. So I don't think they run it back and make it to the finals, but I think
no,
they'll be a really good team. They might make it to second, maybe even conference finals. But I think Jimmy Butler really showed how good of a player he is. That he probably didn't get that much love before.
yeah,
Um, and I think I just love their culture and stuff like that that they have there that's built. So I think they'll be good, but like you said, their big depth is kind of where it gets worried. And you've seen if Bam gets in foul trouble or something like that, they don't know what to do. Or even when he didn't play, like they were kind of stunned. So
for sure.
um, that could be something that maybe they get a late trade or free agent or something
Yeah,
to fix that.
pretty big.
Next up, the Indiana Pacers. They were 45 and 28 last year. They fired their coach Nate McMillan, which I didn't think
What the hell? Why?
kind of random.
Yeah,
Um, I don't know. They had like signed him to an extension and then they fired him right after the bubble. I don't know because it wasn't really. I didn't feel like they should have had expectations to like make noise in the
yeah. Like,
bubble,
come on, man.
but they did get swept, so I guess that was the main reason. And they haven't had playoff success, but their team, their lineup, their starting lineup is actually really solid. When they're all healthy, you got Malcolm Brogdon, Victor Oladipo, T.J. Warren, Sabonis, who they didn't have in the bubble, which I think is another reason why like you fired them, but you weren't healthy. And I think they lost to the Miami, who went to the finals. So, and then Miles Turner. So I think that's a good starting lineup. There was talk about them getting Gordon Hayward and
Mm,
possibly trading someone like Miles Turner, but that never went through. And off their bench, they have a really solid bench as well. Um, yeah, Aaron Holiday, who has played really well. They also got
yeah.
Justin Holiday, the brothers, but TJ McConnell, Jeremy Lamb, they should be getting back, who they haven't had. Um, and then they drafted Cash Stanley, who I think is probably might not get in the rotation right away, but he's one of those like potential type players from Duke. So,
Mm.
and they still got Doug McDermott, they got Jakari Sampson, and they got Goga Bit,
Oh, that big
Bit
dude.
the big dude.
Yeah, from Georgia.
Yeah, so I think they could have some good depth. The only worried thing I have for them is their big depth, kind of to
Yeah,
similar to
after
Miami.
yeah,
After like Samson's all right, like he's athletic,
yeah,
rebound and stuff, but like when they didn't have Sabonis, and I think one game like Miles Turner, um, got in foul trouble or something, like he had Samson playing like the five and stuff.
yikes.
They didn't seem like they wanted to go to Goga, so
Goga.
that's where I feel worried. But they have a lot of guard depth and a lot of wing depth. I don't know. What are your thoughts on them?
Yeah, I think you talked about it right there. They have a solid team. Like they have a team that's going to go to the playoffs. If you have this team for 10 years, they go to the playoffs every year. But it's yeah, they almost have too much guard and wing depth. They need to make a move. Um, and another question is just how they view um, what's his name, Turner and Sabonis. Yeah,
It's a bonus,
if
yeah.
they view them working well together for the long term. Um, because it I don't know because it's like if not, you still need to get a big back in return because you can't lose one of them or you're screwed on your big depth.
Yeah,
So I think they need to make a move for get one of their guards or wings out and try to get
and try to get
something.
a big
Just change
depth.
it up a
Yeah,
bit.
yeah. So yeah, I don't know. Like they're just like a really solid team. It's kind of like the Pacers always are. Like they're just solid. They're
Yeah.
not like, oh, they have it like they're title contenders, but they're always a playoff team.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I don't know how much, what else they can do. Like their lineup is like solid. Like they're all solid players,
Yeah.
but like you're not like they're like the best at their positions. Like so it's kind of like maybe do you trade a couple of them and upgrade to try to get like a superstar? I don't know.
Yeah.
I know Paul George has said bad things about the Oregon stuff like
Dear
that.
God.
So um, yeah, I don't know what their ceiling is. They'll be a playoff team, first or second round exit. I mean,
That's about it.
next up though, the Boston Celtics. They were the 3 seed last year. They were 48 and 24. Um, they lose Gordon Hayward, but they still got Kimba. You're looking at maybe they move Marcus Smart into the starting lineup now. Jalen Brown, Jason Tatum. They still have Daniel Dees.
Mm.
They brought in Jeff Teague, which I think is a good addition. They drafted Aaron Nesmith, who's like one of the best shooters in the draft,
Oh
from
yeah.
Vandy.
Mm.
They drafted Carson Edwards last year, Romeo Langford last year, who maybe they might get in the rotation now. That like Gordon Hayward's gone, so they kind of have more minutes to give up. And then they also drafted Peyton Pritchard from Oregon. Solid. I don't know. I personally like Carson Edwards better than Peyton Pritchard. So I don't think he'll really play. But then their forwards, they brought in Tristan Thompson, which I think is a really good pickup for them. Robert Williams still there, who's kind of he has his moments, but not
Yeah.
consistent. Semi Ojale, Grant Williams, and Javante Green. Um, what's your thoughts on Boston?
I like them. I mean, I don't know. There's just something about them where I just don't. I don't know. I can't see them getting to the finals yet. Not yet. They have a really good team. They're going to be a top 3 seed, top 4 seed. But I mean, after Jalen Brown and Tatum, their wing depth is kind of. I mean, they have
Yeah,
Ojale and Williams, but it's like,
and that's the crazy part too, because when you said that last year, like you have Tatum, Brown, and Gordon Hayward. Like you don't need
yeah.
much because like you got three really good wings. But now it's kind of iffy. Like Tristan Thompson's a good for big wise, but wing like Grant Williams, are you bringing in?
But he's kind of like more
Um,
like a big anyway.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's a 4-5, so it's kind
Yeah.
of you need like that another like two or more like a three really.
Yeah.
Um, because like Nesmith, maybe they're saying he feels that, but I think he's more like a two shooter.
Yeah.
Um, and they drafted like Pritchard. I didn't like that because they already had Carson Edwards and they already had Truman Waters from LSU. So it's like you get another guard and you brought in Jeff Teague. Like
And
I didn't
Langford.
feel like, yeah, and they've already had Langford.
Jeez.
So I
That's
feel
a
like they
lot of
didn't need another
guards.
guard depth.
No.
I feel like they should have went with another wing or something like that. So like Ojale has had his moments too in
Yeah.
the
I like
rotation
him.
and stuff like that. So maybe there, but yeah, I don't their roster wise, I don't think they got better. And I think it's
Mm.
something the problem with Boston is because they never I feel like they haven't flipped their assets well. Like they've always had a
No.
lot of they've had a lot of picks and stuff like that, but they keep drafting and not pulling the trigger and flipping them. Like there's no way you should have Carson Edwards, Peyton Pritchard, Romeo Langford, and Nesmith as your like they're all development players and stuff like that that might not play and stuff. And you just have too many of them. You
They're
just have
kind
too
of all
many of
like
them.
the similar players. Yeah, like you're saying.
Yeah,
They're
you got
all
to flip
similar.
them at some point. You got to
Yeah.
flip them at some point.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where I see them. They'll be a good playoff team.
Yeah.
Tatum is a star,
For
superstar.
sure.
I love Jason Tatum. Jalen Brown has been great. Kemba struggled a little bit in the bubble, but he's good. Marcus Smart's a dog. I just don't. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough, but they'll compete. They'll compete. They could get to the Eastern Conference Finals.
for sure.
To get over the hump, not sure. Next up, Toronto Raptors. They finished 53-19. They kind of, I think they got worse, to be honest.
Yeah,
They got Kyle Lowry still. Their two guard, and maybe they might start Norman Powell, or they did sign back Fred VanVleet. I don't know if they decide maybe go Kyle Lowry and Fred VanVleet together.
yeah.
Chance of that. They got OG Anunoby, who's solid. Pascal Siakam, and then they brought in Aaron Baines, which I think is a good pickup. But they did lose um, Marc Gasol and Ibaka, which I could think that could hurt them. Backup guard depth, you have they drafted Malachi Flynn from San Diego State, who I think he's a solid pickup. Um, Terrence Davis, who's been in the rotation. Matt Thomas. They brought in DeAndre Bimbre, who used to be with the Atlanta Hawks. And then their forward depth, you have Chris Brochure, who's been solid. They got Alex Lynn now.
E.
Stanley Johnson, Patrick McCall, and Elise Johnson. I don't know. They're the thing with them. They're always got good coaching, but on paper, their roster's
They're
not.
thin,
They're thin. I feel like they're thin.
super. Like, yeah, yeah, they're gonna get worse for sure. I mean, they're so. I still think they make the playoffs because, like you said, coaching, organization's great. They still have a solid starting five, but like you were saying, after that, it's rough. Like their big depth now is Aaron Baines. I think he's great. I think he's
And
a.
then you have Alex Lynn. You're bringing in Alex
That's
Lynn,
not
Chris
good.
Boucher.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's not good at
Elise
all.
Johnson, who I think was in Indiana, he didn't play at all. So like
Yeah, that's
Stanley
bad.
Johnson hasn't played anywhere.
Dear
Patrick
God, I
McCall, I
forgot
feel
about
like
him.
hasn't played in years. Like
It's rough.
I don't know. Their ceiling's not. I don't think they're. I said it last year. I didn't think they were going to be good in the playoffs. Which they did compete though. They did compete,
Hmm.
but I just wasn't sold on them being contenders. Obviously, they came off of finals, but they had Kawhi. They did do great for losing Kawhi and still being a really good team. But I'm just not sold on them. I'm just not sold on them to be honest.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like we're saying, they're gonna make the playoffs, but they definitely got worse. Absolutely.
And this is my bold prediction. We'll see it when we talk about standings. I don't have them in the playoffs. I don't.
Damn,
I think
like
teams might
that.
figure out Siakam. I don't have them in the playoffs. Last team, the Milwaukee Bucks. They finished 56-17. They had a lot of additions. They traded for Drew Holiday. They gave up a lot for Drew Holiday.
Lot.
They got DJ Augustine now, came from Orlando, who was playing good in Orlando. They still got Chris Middleton, Giannis, Brooke Lopez. But their whole bench, I feel like, was gone. Like they had Robin Lopez. They got rid of. I mean, Eric Bledsoe wasn't on the bench, but they lost Eric Bledsoe. They were supposed to get Bogdanovich, like we talked about earlier, but now they got
That's
DiVincenzo,
bad.
Brian Forbes, Pat Cunningham. Their forwards, they brought in Bobby Portis, Torrey Craig from Denver, who I think is really good.
Mm,
And then DJ Wilson is their next guy at their forwards. So, what do you think of Milwaukee?
I think they're good. But I don't know. They're they steamroll through the regular season every year because Giannis is one of the best players in the league. But once they get to the playoffs, I just lose all faith in them. It happens. It's like clockwork too. It's happened for the last 3 years. I mean, Giannis is still young and um, he's a back-to-back MVP, but I still just don't see them getting to the finals. I'm not going to be surprised if they get to the finals, but I don't know. Even if they do, there's just teams in the West that are just built different, and they're not built different. I mean, Drew Holiday, that's big.
I think that's a
Middleton,
big
and
addition for
Giannis,
them.
that's a damn good three.
Is-
But I don't know. Part of it comes down to the. I don't know if I want to say it, but part of it comes down to coaching too. It's like Bud, like he's consistently kind of not choked, but he's
Yeah.
consistently like right there, and it's like, dude, come on, you got to beat that team in the series, but I don't know.
Yeah, this team, I'm not sure. Like Drew Holiday's good for them. I think DJ Augustine's good for them. But I just like their bench, I'm not sold on.
No.
Like Bobby Portis is a good addition. Torrey Craig's a great addition, actually. I like him a lot, but After that, I don't know. Like I feel like the Bucks, like they're just one of those teams that's just not built for the playoffs, like you said. Giannis, I mean, if he's shooting, if he, I think it honestly comes down if he shoots better. To be honest,
For sure.
if he can shoot all of a sudden, then they're going to the ceiling is the roof. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But
This man.
but uh, yeah, I think they'll be a really good regular season team. But once it comes to the playoffs, I don't know. And it'll be interesting to see how Drew Holiday fits because he's one of the best defenders in the league, and he's underrated offensively as well. So
Yeah.
that now that we went through all the teams, every team, new roster and stuff, let's get to the standings. We can kind of just go through it kind of quickly. Pretty much, you want to start from the top or the bottom?
Let's start from the bottom. Yeah. God, let's
From
just
the
get out the way.
bottom. All right. So both of us, we both have the Cavs as the worst team in the Eastern Conference. I think that's simply just like we talked about. Their team's just not good. They
Yeah.
were the worst team last year. They're probably gonna be the worst team this year. I feel like their addition's not much. I mean, you got anything else on that?
Nope.
New York Knicks, we got as the second worst team. We got them dropping. They were 12th last year to 14. Um, I think we both probably agree. We just don't like their additions. They have no star power. Julius Randle's their best player. And like you said earlier, the shooting wise, don't really feel like you got shooting.
Yeah.
I mean, you got anything else on them?
Nope.
All right, next up, 13. You have the Detroit Pistons. I have the Chicago Bulls. They're actually 13 and 12. So you have the Bulls 12. I have the Bulls 13 and Pistons 12. So um, my thinking over reason why I have the Pistons over the Bulls. Um, I just feel like Derrick Rose and Blake Griffin. Maybe they
Get the
throw
hell out
throw
of
about
here.
the clock a little bit.
Throw back the
And
clock.
honestly, it was a little biased because I like Jeremy Grant and Mason Plumlee coming from Denver. That maybe they can compete. Like I don't know, they'll be like a gritty Detroit basketball fighting team
Like the
that'll get
Spurs
them
with
the
Tim
12th
Duncan
seed.
and David Robinson.
No, not like that at all. But so we both them. That's actually the Pistons. I mean, in a similar spot. The Bulls dropping. What's your thought? What you think? Bulls over Pistons. I mean, it's kind of like flipping a coin, I guess. But like,
Yeah,
what are your
no,
thoughts
it
on it?
literally that's what I did before the show. I just flipped a coin. So I mean it's not really anything substantial. Not really. But I just think the Pistons just don't have any young talent. Not even young talent, but I mean Blake Griffin and Derrick Rose aren't getting younger, they're getting older. And at least the Bulls have some young talent. They are banking on getting better with Wendell, Laurie, all that. So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's not much. It's 11 and 12 or 12 and 13. So, next up, 11. You have the Orlando Magic. I have the Hornets. Why do you have the Magic at 11?
I mean, can
I
I
have
just
them at
always
10. I have them at 10. So
Oh, okay.
not much of it.
Okay. So not a big difference. I mean, we both agree they're not going to make the playoffs this year. I just think they've just haven't gotten better over the years and just teams are catching up. So
Mhm.
that's really just it. Teams are going to go past them
Yeah, I agree. And also losing Jonathan Isaac doesn't help.
for sure.
Um, and I actually have the Hornets at 11,
Yeah.
which I think you're high on the Hornets. You have them at 9.
Hmm.
So, for me personally, I just think, I mean, they could be good. I just don't like their front court with Cody Zeller and Biombo. And I feel like LaMelo, I feel like he could be someone like Trey Young in his first year where they're not really winning.
Yeah.
He'll probably maybe put up some numbers and stuff, but I think he might have a rough rookie year, shooting wise as well and stuff like that. So that's kind of why I have them where I have them. Um, but Orlando I have at 10. No Jonathan Isaac, I think hurts, like I said, and like you said, other teams passed them, so they're pretty similar on that. But talk about the Hornets. You got them at 9 for you. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I just think they've had I don't even want to say solid built like foundation or solid core, but I mean, I like Miles Bridges, Devonte Graham, and PJ Washington. I think they're all pretty good players. They just needed a couple more pieces. And again, I don't think this team's going to the playoffs this year or next year. I don't
They'll
think
be in
they're
the
there
plane.
yet.
They'll be in the plane. They'll have a chance
So
if it's
maybe,
8-9.
yeah.
I'm
But
saying they're 9.
even if Lamelo just comes in and it is a good point guard for them in their first year, and Gordon Hayward is good for them. I think they're going to pass other teams that haven't done much to get better. I
Yeah.
do think they need, yeah, their front court depth is pretty worrisome. So yeah, I do think they need to address that, but I feel like they did get better.
Yeah. Um, so I have the, like I said, Magic at 10. I kind of already explained that. You have the Hawks at 10, who I have at 7 as a playoff team. Tell me what's your thoughts on the Hawks?
I don't know. I just don't know if they'll be able to figure it out in 1 year with so many pieces. They have just a ton of young players and just a ton of players. Um, I don't know. I'm not even just because I'm a big Luca fan, but Trey Young, I think he's great on offense. But with all their players that are kind of on defense, they got to figure those rotations out and help him and help um, the other players that are pretty bad on defense. So I think they're gonna have another kind of year.
Yeah. Yeah, either way, we're both higher on them than they were last year, so we
Oh,
think
for
they've
sure.
improved. Obviously, Adam Bogdanovich and Gallinari. Like I said, I have them at 7 as a playoff team. My main, honestly, the biggest reason for that is because of Rondo. I just feel like just his just leadership and stuff, like being on the team, I think it's going to help them a lot. Especially when it comes down to close games and stuff and coming off the bench. And they obviously got way better shooting and stuff like that. I just think the worry with them is going to be defensively.
Yeah,
Um, I think that's my worry with them. Is that simple? But
but
I
I,
have them at the 7th seed.
but with Rondo, I feel like he is in the regular season, dude. He doesn't be playing like
Yeah,
crazy
no, no,
hard in
no,
the
no.
entire
Yeah,
season.
I'm not even just saying him playing. I'm just saying like
Just
helping
being there,
young
yeah,
players, Trey Young, just being there.
for sure.
I think it's going to help them a lot. But and again, it's the East, so 7
That's true.
it could be. It's not the greatest record necessarily. Like the
Yeah,
West, that's like a 50-win team. So
yeah.
let's see. So next up, 10. We were talking about 9. You already talked about. You have the Hornets. You already talked about them. I have the Raptors. I have the Raptors falling out of the playoffs after they were
Wow.
second seed next year. I think it's just like I said. I don't like their depth. And personally, I mean, I've never been a fan of their team, and I feel like teams like I don't know, Siakam is he's a great player, but I'm just not a believer in him and Kyle Lowry. I'm just not.
I agree.
They'll probably make the playoffs. I'm just not a believer. You have the Raptors at 6. Go ahead. What you still think? You have we both have them going a lot, not a lot worse, but well, I have them a lot worse. But you 6,
Substantially, still four
yeah, still 4
spots.
spots, yeah,
My thinking around that is I completely agree with you. I see all the hype around Siakam, and again, I think he's a like you want him on your team. He's a good player, but
that's
I
their
don't
star.
know. He got a spin move and he got kind of a shot. I mean, a floater, but I mean that's about it. You can if you stop him. I mean, what else you guard? Van Fleet and Kyle Lowry. I mean, again, I still
Yeah,
think they make playoffs solely off the fact their entire team has pretty damn good playoff experience. They have good coaching. They
yeah,
have a good front office. They have an
chemistry, yeah,
identity. So, I mean, that alone can almost get you in the playoffs every year. But they do drop. They ain't about to be no 2 seed.
yeah. Yeah, I just think, like I said, the Hawks. I think they just pass them up. Um, And yeah, like I just not believe they probably will make playoffs. I'm a big bias on the Raptors because I'm just not a fan of like how like I'm not a fan of Siakam's game. I'm just not. He's
Yeah,
good, but I just don't know how. Like just
I
don't know
know
how.
you don't know how. That's how I feel. Yeah,
Like okay, next up we both have the Wizards at 8.
yeah,
Um, I think we both probably just simply Westbrook and Beal. That's enough to get in the playoffs in the
for
East, I
sure.
think. And I think they've done solid with their picks and stuff like that. So,
Yeah,
you got anything else on them?
no, I agree. The Westbrook makes them bigger, better, and um, yeah, and that Denny pick, I think even if he's just pretty good this year, that's enough.
Yeah, and they were 9 last year, I believe,
Okay.
without John Wall playing, so it's not like a huge thing to say them 8 and pretty much passing the Magic. So, um, 7, like I said, I had the Hawks. Already talked about that. You have the Pacers at 7. I have them at 6. So, pretty much you have the Raptors above them. Talk about the Pacers. I think it's pretty much similar. I mean, they're a playoff team. They're always they're solid. They're good. They'll be a good team. But
But
I
my
mean,
thing
this
is
is
like can they win a series? That's
Yeah, I don't.
I don't know if they can win a series, and it's like they're just a pretty good regular season team. So, um, yeah, and none of them have a ton of experience winning in the playoffs. At least, I mean, some of them maybe have gotten to the playoffs, but um, I don't know. I'm not super high on them. I was big on when they got what's his name that came from Milwaukee. Why am I?
From
You know what I'm
Milwaukee.
talking about, right? The six man.
I can't think of
Dude, why am I? He played. Oh, what's his name? I don't know. He came from Virginia. Do you know
Virginia.
what I'm talking about though? The point guard, the
The
president.
point
They
guard for
nickname him like the governor or
the
president. I don't
oh
know.
TJ McConnell.
No, Jesus, God, no,
I mean that's
dude. Who
he
is
came from
it?
Philly though. He came from Philly. I don't know. Oh, Brogdon. Brogdon.
Brogdon.
Brogdon.
Yes. God, why was I forgetting his name?
I was like the president. I was like
You
TJ
said
McConnell.
T.J.
McConnell.
McConnell. Hell no. But I like that coming over, but I don't know. It hasn't made like a crazy difference. They're just all right. One thing I did want to bring up before we keep going is now they kept that little play-in tournament for the 8 seed, right?
Yeah.
I think that's going to be interesting because some of these teams may have better records than the other, but some of these teams may be, if they're a lower, like you're talking about the Raptors, they just may be a better
Play.
team
Yeah.
to
Playing.
play somebody for a little, a play in a high risk game and in a series. So that'll be
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. That would definitely be interesting. Yeah, the Pacers though, like, yeah, they'll just be good.
Yeah,
Probably lose the first or second round, like I said. All right, where are we at? That was what, 7, 6. You have Raptors. I have Pacers. I mean, we pretty much talked about both teams. We can move on. 5. You have the Miami Heat. I have the 76ers. I have the Heat at 4 though. So go ahead and talk about the Heat real quick.
yeah. I mean, I just think it comes down to regular season. I think they're more of a playoff team. I mean, that may sound kind of like cliche or whatever, but um, the only thing, if Precious, I think if Precious comes in and he's kind of like Bam early, where he can come in and contribute good minutes, I think they're set. But if not, I mean, when Bam goes out, I mean, I just worry about Myers and Olenek as your backup plan. So, um, I mean, they're still going to go in. I think they're going to win their first round series, most likely, and second round possibly. So, um, I just, yeah,
Yeah, I agree. That's why I have them at 4. I could even see even someone like they could even drop in a little lower, and you could even have someone like the Pacers above them.
yeah,
Like regular season wise, and part of that could be just simply because they played longer than everyone else. They have a shorter break that
it's true.
them and the Lakers are the shortest breaks coming up with the season, so that could be something. And other teams might be well rested and stuff like that. So and it's a shorter season, obviously it's by 9 games, but so that you don't have as much time to turn around on a slow start. Um,
They have a couple players coming off injuries too. Goran and Bam were banged up a little
yeah,
bit.
exactly. So that could be something interesting. I have at 5 the Sixers. Um, they could be good. You have them at 2. Like you said, you love their new additions, stuff like that. Me, I think they'll be good. They could be higher in this, but they've struggled somewhat last year too in the regular season. Obviously, they finished 6th last year, so we both have them higher. But like we said, we've seen them struggle in regular season games and stuff like that. So that's my thing. But you have them at 2, so talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, and this may just be kind of like how you have a bias for the Raptors for how they play. I really like Ben Simmons, and I think, and I love kind of the old school big man like Embiid, even though he can shoot the three a little bit. I think just having a dominant big man and then a dominant wing player um, is a pretty damn good starting point. You get a playoff coach now who's been and won a finals. You got that, and then you bring in a lot of good shooting. You still have a pretty good defensive team, and now you've got better offensively. I think they're going to be good, especially in the playoffs, because I mean they play a team like, I mean, they're gonna get Indy and the Raptors the hell up out of there, and then if they play a team like Boston, I could see them giving them some troubles.
Mhm.
Because I think they're built to play teams like that, and even Milwaukee, who knows? So yeah, I really like the Sixers this year.
Yeah, I think they'll probably be better. They could, like I said, they could move up. Like I said, we could see something where the Sixers and Pacers are higher than the Heat or something like that.
Mhm.
It's very possible. So I think at this point, I think it's pretty much the top six for the most part. We agree on. It's just different placement and stuff.
Mhm.
But like you said, Sixers, I think they'll be better. They have had some struggles. I'm not sure. Embiid, Simmons coming off injury too.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if he's going to be back for the start, or he might already be back and ready. So,
I don't know.
um, but yeah, I'm not as sold on Ben Simmons. I think he's good. I just think him and Embiid, I'm not sold on working to be a championship contender. Um, but I mean, we'll see. We'll see. Four, like I said, I have Miami. I already talked about that. You have the Nets. I have them at two. What do you got for me for the Nets at four?
I just I just think about every time a team like that's built the first year, they're actually playing. It's kind of just figuring it out, and I feel like that's kind of how it's going to go. They're both coming off injury, and they both have never played together. I feel like it's going to be more of an adjustment period than people think, but I think that's just the regular season. I think once they get to the playoffs, that's a completely different story, and they're both of them have won titles, KD and Kyrie. So once they get to the playoffs, that's a different story. They're like the number the number one seed in the playoffs, but in the regular season, I don't see them trying to get the damn top spot and stuff like that. So
Yeah. Yeah, I have them at two. And honestly, the main reason with that, I just think they have so much depth
yeah,
where they could just win games just off how talented they are. Obviously they'll be figuring it out. Maybe the only other team I could see passing them is maybe like the Celtics,
mm,
like regular season record wise. But like you said, I think playoff time we could see these standings being different, but playoff time they'll be fine. Um, and KD being back off injury, he might take them a little bit to figure it out and stuff like that. But I think they're going to be really good when it comes to playoff time. So um, next up, third we have Celtics. Same spot. They were actually the 3 seed last year, so we have them staying. Um, what do you got for me on the Celtics? What are your thoughts on them?
yeah. I mean, they're just kind of always the three seed. Like, there's always two teams that are pretty clearly better than them, and then they're a team where you're like, okay, if they made the finals, I wouldn't be surprised. But I just don't. I don't know. Them and Milwaukee are kind of similar, even though Milwaukee has a player that's a ton better than their, well, not a ton better, but the best player of the two teams. I just I think they're a really good regular season team, and they're going to win their first series for sure. But I just don't see them. I just don't see them getting to the finals yet. Um, like we talked about, their wing depth is kind of worrisome, and then they just have a ton of guards. I don't know.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I don't. They lost Hayward. I don't. I think they got worse. I don't think by much because I think their players like Tatum will be better, Brown will be better.
Yeah.
Maybe someone like Carson Edwards could be better and stuff like that. They drafted a shooter. So like that's not hurting them a ton with losing Gordon Hayward. And they did bring in Tristan Thompson, which I think is good for them. So like maybe they've maybe got a little bit worse or like stayed the same in a
Mm-hmm.
different way. But I just don't see them getting better and getting over the hump. They'll be a good team, great team, playoff team, compete in the playoffs, but I just don't know. I feel like they just need to make some more moves, like pull the trigger on something.
Because it's like the top 4 or 5 teams in the East all got better, even if it was just a little bit, and the
Yeah.
Celtics really didn't.
Yeah, exactly. I don't. Yeah, and obviously you have the Nets now coming in, so
Yeah.
that's gonna be big. Two, I have the Nets. Like I said, you have the Sixers. We already talked about that.
Mm,
Lastly, we both agree the Bucks will be the best regular season team. I mean,
yeah.
they lost like they lost Eric Bledsoe, but they get Drew Holiday and stuff. I think Giannis. We both agree regular season they're gonna be the best team in the East. You
Yeah,
got anything else on them?
he's just a really good regular season player. Giannis is, which is why I mean they'll always be like a top 2 seed as long as he's there. But I think it just comes to the playoffs. I mean, I think this is the year for him. Not that he has to win a championship, but it's like we gotta see something else. You know what I mean? If you're gonna win back-to-back MVPs, it can't just be get to the Eastern Conference Finals and not even win, like not even take it to 7 games. Um,
Yeah,
well, how many did they go last year? It was only 6, right?
they lost in the second round. to the
Oh, they
Heat
lost in
in
the
like
second round.
5. It was like 5. Yeah, they
Oh,
lost to the Heat
yeah.
in the second round. And I called it too. I said if they play the Heat in the playoffs, like they're
Oh,
gonna lose. And
absolutely. Yeah.
I said if they played like the Celtics or someone, they might beat them. But like if they play the Heat are built to beat them. Like I just felt like I didn't like how the Bucks play.
Yeah.
Um.
So
So let's wrap it up. Give me your Eastern Conference Finals and Finals for the East. Like who do you see in the Eastern Conference Finals, and who do you have going to the finals out the East?
well, okay. Well, I need to
So how
play it
you?
out in my head.
Yeah, but say how you have it. So I'll read you.
Yeah, read me it off.
So you have the Bucks at 1, Sixers at 2, Celtics at 3, Nets at 4, Heat at 5, Raptors 6, Pacers 7, Wizards 8.
Well, give me the matchups like 1 and 8. So I
Okay,
think
so
the
1-8. Wizards
Bucks.
are okay. Bucks, yeah, Bucks obviously.
You
Sixers,
said it.
Pacers.
Sixers.
Okay, Celtics, Raptors.
Celtics.
Nets, Heat. That's a good one.
Woo, Jesus, that would be a fun ass series. I think I think the Nets are taking it if they're healthy.
Okay, Nets if they're healthy. So you got all the top seeds. So now you have Bucks and Nets. Who's going to the conference
Nets.
finals?
If they're all healthy, the Nets are taking that.
Nets and then Sixers, Celtics.
I don't know. I just have a really weird feeling about the Sixers.
You got the Sixers.
Yeah,
So
I
you
have a
got
weird.
Sixers and Nets, Eastern Conference Finals. Who is going to the finals?
Again, if the Nets are healthy, I think they're going to the finals. Like you said, they're really deep. But it comes down to if they're healthy. Like if KD's not there and it's just Kyrie, I don't think they've beaten any of the top seeds.
Yeah, I definitely. Okay, so you got the Nets in the
So
finals
who do you got?
over
Let's
the.
do it.
Okay, so I got you. So Bucks, Wizards. I got the Bucks.
Yeah.
Nets, Hawks, Nets. Celtics, Pacers, Celtics. Heat, Sixers. I got the Heat.
The Heat own them
So
though. That's different. The Heat own them.
yeah, so
They always beat
I have same thing you had. You had all the top seeds winning. I also have the top seeds winning. But now I have Bucks and Heat. I got the
dude.
Bucks pulling it out this year.
Finally.
I got the Bucks pulling it out this year.
Okay.
And then I got Nets Celtics. I got the Nets.
Yeah.
And then I got Nets Bucks in the conference finals.
Wait, the same as me, right? Next Bucks.
No, because you have them as the Nets as the 4 seed. So
Oh
you
yeah,
have
I
them
had the my bad, my bad. So
yeah,
you have next Bucks. That would be wild.
in the conference finals. And
Yeah.
I got the Nets. No,
Okay.
I'm gonna go Bucks. I'm gonna go Bucks. I'm gonna go Bucks. Giannis goes to the finals. I'm taking Giannis to the
Think
finals.
so?
The reason
So
I got Drew Holiday locking up Kyrie.
oh
Locking him
shit.
up.
Like he locked up Dame and all them? Yeah.
Yeah. And then I got Giannis locking up KD. Not locking up KD, but guard, maybe they can match up well. Nets can get or Bucks can get to the final. I'm taking the
Dude.
Bucks.
But are the
Giannis is
Bucks
just
that deep? Once the Nets second unit comes in, they may tear them up.
yeah, I don't know. I'm
You're going
Giannis
Bucks?
figures it out. I'm going Bucks.
All right. So we're gonna do the Western Conference one, but Bucks Lakers in the finals would be
Nope.
wild.
Nope.
What?
Lakers not making it out.
Really?
We'll find out next
You
time.
think it's gonna be the Timberwolves? Deloading. Deloading, locking up Drew Holiday. You said that?
All right, bro.
Anthony Edwards, 360 behind the back dunk on Giannis, and he takes the crown from Giannis. I'm just playing. Let me stop. All
All right,
right,
this
my
is a
fault.
long one.
Yeah, my God.
That's
Need to
all
go
we
to
got.
bed.
We finally finished the Eastern Conference preview. This is Fumbles and Floaters.
How was it recording? I'm just kidding,
I
dude.
can see it. I can see it. It
Oh, you
literally
can?
tells me.
Damn it. All right, my fault. All
All right,
right.
Fumbles and Floaters, Eastern Conference preview. See
Yes,
you in
sir.
the Western Conference preview in the next one.
Doses.